Hey guys, it's Jabberwocky doing a very odd video. I haven't done something like this yet, but this whole week has sort of been about new things for me, so I figured I'd give it a shot. I see a couple other biotubers who have videos reviewing sets from LEGO as well as reviewing their own MOCs, so I figured I'd try my hand at it as well. This is my self-MOC, Geminus. He is something that I am incredibly proud of. I've worked on him for over about half a year, and everything on him is this culmination of conversations I had with people or ideas that were in my head. And he started off as a odd little combiner. I wanted to take the basic functions of Maximus and Spinax, the pistons for moving his arms and his hips, combine it with Kreka, which you can see back here. All of these technic beams serve to allow for this function. You press down on this tab, and his disc launcher comes forward. Now, his weapons are in the way. I'll get to those in a second. But that's what the original idea started out as. You can see his feet also still hold that resemblance. They are these technic beams, and they are shaped like Maximus's feet, but they have Kreka's stabilizers. His body started to take on a bit of a life of its own. His legs, I realized I needed a stable base, and Gedunka's leg design was perfect for that. His tail was brought about because of the backstory that I eventually gave him, so I gave him Cardus's tail. His hands are a sort of fusion of the Toamata Nui Titan's hands, but I've had a lot of external input from artists and friends of mine as to how they should function. I put his thumb on a ball joint so that it has a further reach, and his arms are attached in two places on each arm. They are attached to the back of his torso and to the front of his torso. The front of his torso works a lot like pectoral muscles. It moves side to side independent of his actual body. Now, one of my favorite functions on this guy is the gear function on his back. You see, because his upper torso is mostly Kreka, turning this knob turns his head, and it took me so long to figure out how to make sure it could turn his head without turning his body, but eventually I did figure it out. It's kind of goofy, but it does allow for some interesting moments. Say someone walks up to me, asks me a question. It's just a little funny. Something else I'm very proud of is my incorporation of the Makuta Pterodax Kraken. Now, the movie edition Kraken is my absolute favorite mask that Bionicle has ever released, and I will put out a comprehensive video explaining why. But, for now, I just want to talk about how I was able to integrate it into his character design and into his backstory. You see, Makuta Geminus was originally Geminus, a hunched-over, spear-carrying. His weapons were a spear and a buckler, Toa of Ice, and Makuta Geminus, who was this sort of serpent-like Makuta. The two of them fused together in much the same way that Makuta Pterodax fused with Takanuva, and Geminus was born. Now, unlike Takanuva, Genus and Minus never got to separate, so they've just sort of lived their existence like this. So, what you see right here is Minus. He has a much more stern face, and usually carries himself upright. That's why posture is so important with this MOC. Then, there is Genus. You turn the face around, you flip his jaw over, and boom. Also, punch him. It just looks so terrifying, and it's a very different look. You can imagine either character depending on which face is present and which posture is being held. Another reason that I really like the hands that I made are they are double jointed instead of just single jointed like the Matanui Titan. So you can have either this sort of open palm reaching for you, or you can have a very harsh 90-degree angle on the ends of the digits and make it look sort of like this claw. Now, because I said I mentioned them, his weapons. his weapons actually took me quite a while to figure out, because I wanted something that he could hold without it looking like he was holding it. Like the Motunui Titan, his weapons were very obviously like what his hands were based around. Let me see if I can go and get him to talk about this. You see, with the Motunui Titan, his hands, when his weapons aren't being held, have these little holes, almost as though his hands aren't quite complete. It just sort of looks odd when you're posing him without his weapons. So I wanted a solution that made it so his hands didn't look awful when his weapons weren't in them. So, as you can see right here, his palm doesn't look too strange. I mean, sure, this part's a bit thicker, but nothing looks like anything's missing. And the way his weapons work is they have these little tabs right here. His weapons have two of them because they can be one-handed or two-handedly weld, and his shield is ambidextrous, so it has a tab right here that can flip to either side, and it gets held in place fairly securely because his knuckles are longer than the radius of this thing's turn. So, the way it works, if I can rip your hand off, is open the hand up, take a weapon, and very simply tab it in, like that. Now it is securely held, and you can close the hand around it. Now, the way that I tend to do this is like this. It is firmly closed, the thumb can finish, it looks good, and the weapon is not going to flop around. I also wanted to use axles instead of pins, because pins would allow these to turn, and I don't want them to be turning in his hand. So, that's how his weapons work. His 3 arms were because I didn't want to give him 4. 4 arms, to me, would look a bit crowded, and I did like the idea of keeping him sort of lopsided. So, I built his weapons around that. I am from Iceland. In Iceland, proper Viking armories contained, usually, a spear, a skirmish axe, which is a short dagger, which he doesn't need one of, a sword, which again he really doesn't need one of because he's not getting into sword fights. He needs big, heavy weapons. An axe. Axes were actually my very first idea, and I'm still going back and forth between replacing his spear with another axe because I just like how it looks so much. Let's see. You can see right here, holding these 2 weapons, it doesn't actually look that strange, especially if I'm posing to the side. And the fact that they're so long means that they can, at least the spear can touch the ground even if it's held in his top arm. Put his proper head back. These 2 weapons just sort of felt like a perfect fit for him. And now finally, the shield, which I'm very proud of. The golden Krakan embossed on it was sort of a last-minute decision, but I do like how it turned out. So, same as the others, open his hand up, and then slide this down, and then very simply close his hand. It's dead simple. Also, the thumb is on a pin, so the thumb can rotate as well as being on a ball joint. I put a lot of effort to try and make sure the thumb had proper articulation. One minor issue is that the shield is heavy, so if you're trying to pose him very quickly, you won't have very much luck. You will need to sort of work a pose in order to get it to properly function. But I do enjoy the warrior stance that he can have. Also, keeping these on axles means that I can slide them up and down, so he can do this, which if you've ever fought with Vikings, you would know, holding the axe like this sort of turns the axe into a set of brass knuckles so you can punch with them, or you can hold it all the way down here, which puts all the weight at the top of the axe, meaning that you can have much more forceful swings. And while we're on the topic of force and Vikings, my favorite pose for this guy is, let's see, the spear needs to be upside down for it. His finger. That is one mild issue, is that these Technic pieces were not ever intended, I don't think, to be, used as fingers. So this idea of sort of a one-armed spear throw. This is something that I thought about, but I have no idea if it would be feasible. I just don't know if the weight of the spear would be too much for someone to throw it like this with one arm. But this guy is huge, so it's entirely feasible, at least in my head. I think that goes over most all of the functions. Now that the weapons are out of the way, I will show you his gear function and backpack one more time. Oh no! That is slight issues is because of how much I've modified these systems. They require a little bit more finagling than the actual sets did. Just because there's so many different things going on all at once. So yes, like this. Very simple. Now, for a 100 subscriber special, I was thinking I'd do a let's build on this guy, like I'd show how he's made, and I would explain some more of the thought processes. But I don't know if you guys want that, so 100 subscribers, and I show you guys how this guy's built. That's my challenge to you guys. Thank you for watching. My name has been Jabberwocky. The 30 subscriber special will be coming out later today. And I am in your browser history forever.